It was one of those quiet afternoons when the world seems to hum softly in the background sunlight, filtering through diner windows and the smell of coffee mixing with faint laughter. The red booths gleamed under the bright white lights, and a girl named Emily Carter rolled her wheelchair into the corner by the window. She always picked that same spot where she could feel the warmth of the light and watch the world pass by without getting in anyone's way. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed a napkin on her lap. Emily wasn't used to attention. After the car accident 2 years ago that took her ability to walk, she'd learned how to move quietly through life, not to disturb, not to be noticed. But that day, fate had something else planned. If you believe in kindness, respect, and second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes, the smallest act of compassion can change everything. As she sipped her milkshake, a group of college-aged boys burst into the diner. Loud, confident, laughing as if the world belonged to them. They filled the air with noise, the kind that pushes peace out of the room. The leader, tall with sharp eyes and a smirk that hid cruelty behind charm, noticed Emily sitting quietly by herself. His friends followed his gaze. One of them whispered something. They laughed, and that laughter carried across the diner like nails scratching glass. Emily kept her eyes down, pretending not to notice. But pretending never works with bullies. The louder they get, the smaller you feel, until you can't shrink anymore. They slid into the booth beside her, uninvited. Their laughter grew. Their jokes turned crueler. They teased her wheelchair, her trembling hands, the way she avoided their eyes. One boy reached across the table and took her milkshake, sipping it with exaggerated slurps while the others laughed. She whispered please, but her voice was too soft, drowned in mockery. And then it happened. The boy closest to her leaned forward, said something she couldn't even process, and slapped her cheek with a smirk that burned itself into her soul. The diner went silent. Forks stopped clinking. The few people there stared, unsure whether to step in or stay safe. Emily's eyes failed, but she didn't cry. She just stared down at her hands, trembling. No one moved. No one said a word. The boys laughed again, proud of the silence they'd created, that cowardly, suffocating silence. When they finally left, the echo of their laughter stayed behind, bouncing off the diner walls. Emily sat there for a few more minutes, face turned toward the window, trying to hold her composure. Then she whispered something under her breath, a small, broken prayer that no one heard. She didn't know that outside, sitting on their motorcycles across the street, 5 men had just finished their coffee at a nearby gas station. They saw the group of boys leave the diner, pushing each other and laughing. They didn't hear what happened, but something about the way those boys looked, the arrogance, the mockery, didn't sit right with the man in front, Jack Dalton. Jack was a former Marine, a biker, and the quiet kind of man who'd seen too much of both war and cruelty. He wasn't the type to interfere in every squabble, but he trusted his gut. And right now, his gut told him something wrong had just gone down. He motioned to his crew, and together they crossed the street. Inside, Emily was still there. The waitress stood near the counter, eyes full of sympathy but fear keeping her frozen. When the 5 men walked in, their heavy boots echoed on the tiled floor, and every head in the diner turned. Emily looked up, startled, unsure what to expect. Jack didn't say a word. He just noticed the faint red mark on her cheek, the way her hand trembled as she tried to wipe away a tear. Without asking, he walked to her table, pulled out the chair beside her, and sat down. His leather jacket creaked as he leaned forward slightly. His voice, when it finally came, was calm, the kind that carries strength without having to raise itself. He asked if she was okay. Emily nodded, but her eyes betrayed her pain. Jack looked at his crew. None of them spoke, but all of them knew they didn't need names. They didn't need to know the whole story. Some truths are loud even in silence. Jack called the waitress over, paid for Emily's meal, and told her to get another milkshake on him. Then he told Emily something simple, something that would stay with her forever. Nobody gets to take your peace. She didn't know how to respond, but that sentence, that kindness, cracked something open inside her that cruelty had sealed shut. An hour later, the door of the diner swung open again. The same group of boys stumbled back in, laughing, ready to order something before heading out. Their laughter stopped when they saw who was sitting in the booth by the girl they'd mocked. 5 large, silent men, dressed in dark jackets, were waiting, not angry, not shouting, just present. Their presence alone was enough to shift the air. The boys froze mid-step. The leader tried to smile, then looked at Emily. The red mark on her cheek was fading, but the memory wasn't. Jack didn't stand. He didn't have to. He just looked at them. One steady, unblinking stare that spoke of every wrong they'd ever done, and every consequence they'd avoided. The leader mumbled something, trying to play it off, but his voice shook. One of the bikers leaned forward slightly, just enough for the chain on his wrist to clink against the table. The sound was quiet, but it might as well have been thunder. The boys backed away, muttering apologies, faces pale. Emily didn't look at them. She didn't need to. For the first time in years, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel like someone who needed to disappear. They left in a hurry, and when the door swung shut behind them, the entire diner exhaled. Jack turned back to Emily and smiled softly, the kind of smile that says it's over now. He asked if she had someone to take her home. She shook her head. So, the bikers escorted her out, one walking beside her wheelchair, another holding the door, as if escorting royalty. The sun had shifted in the sky, and the golden light caught on the chrome of their bikes. Jack adjusted her seatbelt in his truck and told her something she'd never forget. That strength doesn't mean fighting back with fists. It means never letting the world turn you cruel. On the ride home, Emily stared out the window, tears in her eyes but a faint smile on her lips. She realized that kindness still existed, and sometimes it came from the most unexpected people. The next morning, the diner owner posted something online, a short story about what had happened, about how 5 bikers stood up for a girl no one else had. Within hours, the story spread, thousands of comments from strangers saying how it restored their faith in humanity. Emily read some of those comments that night, and each word felt like a hand on her shoulder, reminding her that she wasn't alone anymore. Weeks passed. Emily started going out more, not hiding behind her fears anymore. She joined a local charity that provided wheelchairs for children in need. One afternoon, she found a small leather bracelet in her mailbox, the kind bikers wear. No note, just the bracelet, and a single engraved word on the inside. Brave. She smiled, knowing exactly who it was from. Months later, she returned to that same diner. She rolled up to her old booth, ordered her favorite milkshake, and watched the sunlight dance across the window. Life had changed, quietly but completely. She wasn't just the girl in the wheelchair anymore. She was the girl who survived, who inspired, who reminded others that kindness is strength. And across the street, as if watching from a distance, a group of bikes roared past, the sound fading but the feeling staying behind. Emily smiled and whispered thank you to no one in particular, because sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they wear leather and ride in when the world needs reminding that goodness is still real. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's remind the world that compassion and courage still exist. And before you go, comment below what part of this story moved you the most, because your words might inspire someone else to stand up for what's right.